We're back with Alan and a chance to find out from you, what advice would you give to gerontology students who are coming into a field that's only going to get bigger and more exciting as far as what the future holds? What would you advise them?
Well, I'll start with those who might have taken a course and maybe have some interest but haven't made the commitment to gerontology. So as a first-year college student, I had the opportunity to hear from a professor that gerontology offers two real great things to students who are studying. One is a growing job market, right? There's a rapid and unprecedented aging of our population.
Very predictable, and there's nothing that's going to stop the sheer number and the need.
And we are all aging from the moment we're born, because the alternative is not so great. So in addition to that, it was a field in which we could contribute and have a positive contribution to society or to individuals, or even maybe to our families.
Do you agree that it's one of the few fields that we can see in history that is predictably going to grow, and that there are no precedents for this before, and there are ways to create best practices? That the tradition is really the earlier generation. So the exploring of new ideas is going to be embraced rather than opposed at points.
I'm thinking about that. I think you're correct. There is an interesting component, though, to gerontology, that everybody thinks about this golden age of aging, which doesn't really exist.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a misconception that we can go back to past times to find the best way to age, when
that's a good point.
Life expectancy was lower, where family values were shaped differently but wouldn't be applicable to today's society.
Right. So it's a new frontier, and that we have to look at. They're going to be trial and error.
Right.
So when you advise a student that the field is going to grow, what's the next step you give them?
Well, I think that a really important component is to think about what you're looking to do. Are you looking to work in government? Are you looking to work in the private sector, or work in nonprofit? And all of those have different opportunities that are out there. Then also, what's the population that you're interested in working with? So a lot of governmental services are focused on low-income communities, Medicaid populations, which are very specific and have incredible needs. Then you've got the private world, who is looking for opportunities to do research and development, to look for opportunities to market and create products that are really exciting, but that also could be money makers.
But you're at that point. That's the second step. Is what is your passion? What do you want to do? Not
Absolutely.
what you have to do. Now, Jan Abishakra and Annette Lansing have created the Managing Your Career in Aging courses. And so that's at the doorway. That's when you come in, rather than try to figure out what you're going to do with this at the end of a segment of learning. When would you say is the best time to try to figure out what do you want to do with this? Early, middle?
Well, I'd say, and I benefited from the first couple years of my college experience to trying to take in a lot of information and to learn about the various opportunities, the different courses and approaches that you can take. In England and in Japan and in similar ways, you focus a little bit earlier. And so I think that students who are entering into higher ed, who take a little bit of time to kind of learn about, well, what's the difference between psychology and sociology? Would I really do well in the field of business? If business is it about marketing, management, or economics? Those types of questions are really important in the beginning stages.
And that applies to the field of aging.
It applies to the field of aging, exactly. Are you a one-on-one person who likes caregiving? Do you like policy issues? Do you want to work in the field of research? And what I found as well is that once I got to that graduate level of looking for programs, it was really then about figuring out what tools I wanted to develop for myself. And you can start before graduate programs, don't get me wrong. For instance, we work with a lot of graduate and undergraduate students in our institute. And if they've got skills in data analysis, data cleaning, interviewing skills and experience, that they can come on to projects that we're doing as an hourly employee to get an experience level that they've never had before, to test their comfort in working with older people. Because some people, even gerontologists, don't like working directly with older people, which is really quite interesting. So for me, in my personal experience, I had to balance two field areas that I really appreciated. One was community development, The other was urban planning. Really similar field areas in that you're working in community settings to advance, well-being, infrastructure in some ways. Community development was about grassroots for me, and urban planning was about policies. And I wanted to have the policy toolkit. I wanted to be able to talk.
Policy, to call it a toolkit.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So how do you critique policies? How do you change policies? What are the outcomes of policies? And even to a certain extent, how do you analyze policies? Although that's not something I've done a ton of. Understanding what the lay of the land is, the landscape of policies, and how to advocate for change, how to understand cracks in the systems, how to...
And these aren't things you can read in a book and then know what to do. It's you understand the basics, and then you get in projects and you learn the things that aren't in the books, and you've had a chance to do that.
Yeah. I'd say reading is important, though. Yeah. Definitely doing your homework. But getting into the community, and I think that's why community development was of interest to me,
Right.
but asking questions, in your experience, how does this work for you? When you've tried to navigate the system, where have the barriers been? In an ideal world, what do you need, and how could you go about getting that? And those are basic questions that, for me, come back to the older adult's experience in the environment, or anybody's experience in the environment.
Right. In earlier segment, you talked about how your task force and the way you put the coalitions and partners together. You asked those who were living through the life course, what are the barriers that you see, and what are the things that are challenging to you? So the students that are coming through that have that passion would be able to know what to expect and learn from that. What other advice would you give to students?
Well, I say that for those of you who are looking to study gerontology, that understand that there's an application component, that the ivory tower mentality to aging is outdated. And I may be getting in trouble for saying this because there's still promotion and tenure at universities, and tenure track jobs require publishing or perishing, bringing grant dollars in. But understanding that knowledge has an application, right? So what you learn doesn't sit on a shelf. It doesn't sit in the proverbial ivory tower, but that it's there because you're supposed to use it to advance society, to make a place better in some way. And so for me, I could look at it as policy-related kind of change.
Right.
And I do a lot of work in the policy and practice realm. But for some people, it might be taking technology and understanding medical outcomes. For another person, it could be taking technology and understanding how technology could create a social benefit.
Right.
Not a medical outcome, but a social benefit.
But either one of them is applying. You know, the name of this course is Applied Legal and Policy Issues, not just legal and policy issues. And I think you're right on track. I didn't know you were going to go down that track, but if the wonderful work you do is on a shelf and 3 people can understand them and it never helps somebody else other than the career, that may be the wrong-headed way of traditional education. But the model that you're shaping, I think, in talking about is, if you're going to research something, then think ahead as to where that would be applicable. Right. Where could someone who is a caregiver or another researcher actually apply it to humans? I know you do it in projects you've been working on, and I'm sure you'll be working on others. Final takeaways for some student, and then
aging is an incredibly vast field. I'd say that there are a lot of different touch points that people might not realize. I've learned a lot from your work with brain health, and I've always enjoyed listening to you speak. But the work that's going on even here at PCC is so vast and differentiated. You know, from understanding how sustainability overlaps with aging to understanding aging in place and some of the design components that have happened here. I've really enjoyed working with different faculty and students, actually, as they've come up through the ranks. And I'd also say for those students who are at PCC who are looking for that next step, contact those faculty who are there and ask them questions and get to know the fit that's there, because we will respond. It's in our kind of responsibility, in our bailiwick, to say, you know, yes, you're a future gerontologist. Let's help in cultivating your next steps and your path, because That's important for us.
It is, and I've found in working with you that your door is always open for new ideas and for questions from students, and I know that's what we do here at PCC, is to encourage that connection. Now, you know that all of our classes are online now.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yes, and that's why we have students from Japan and students from the East Coast. And one of the problems with that future of online education in gerontology is the distance between. But what we also do is really encourage, and we're doing it with every class we teach, when a student has a question, whether it's about a career, as you're mentioning, those of us on the faculty may not have the answer immediately, but if you don't ask it, we can never help you find the answer, and have resources like Alan come in and explain gerontology as it fits together with PCC and PSU and Merrillhurst, and we're in a rich community. So thank you for that advice for students of this new field of aging.
Absolutely.
All
It's
right.
been my pleasure. This is a fun opportunity, Roger.
Okay, thank you.
So-